In this video, we're going to talk about merge conflicts, since at this point when you're working with branches and you're trying to merge your changes back into a developed branch, at some point you're going to come across a merge conflict, and we want to figure out how we can resolve it. And we have two different developers who are going to add a feature, and they both started from the same spot right here. But they didn't communicate, and they were messing with the same files. So in this case, let's say we had a sound design pass. Now let's also say that we have a art pass as well. So we're going to make a branch for the art pass. So from this starting point, we're going to have our sound design pass and our art pass happen at the same time. And this is not the best way to do it, but I want to show how, a merge conflict can happen. First, let's say we're the artist and we double click and we want to start our development. So we're going to open up our project. Remember, we're in the art pass branch. And inside of here, maybe as an artist, I probably should have been working in the prefab, but let's say that I didn't. And I just started adding things here, and I added a cube, very fancy art, and then, I tried to turn it into a tree. Doesn't really matter. The point is, let's make this a tree. The point is, we made changes to the level and we saved it. Okay, and let's actually make a commit, and we'll call this added trees. All right, and at the same time that this was going on, remember that we started our branch from our main development branch right here in sound design. So I'm going to switch to that branch just by double clicking. I'm going to hop back in. You'll notice that we're back in the original because both developers start at the same point. In this case, we're the sound designer, and we're going to come in and we're going to add some audio sources. Again, doesn't really matter for the demonstration. We're going to save it, hop out, and say added ambient audio. We're going to stage and commit. Now you'll see that right now everything is fine, right? But what's happening is these two developers have started working from the same starting point, and they have altered the same file. Now, the interesting thing with Unity files is some of them can merge okay, and some of them can't. Sometimes you can merge the scene file without any problems, but many times you can't, especially if you're touching the same game objects in the scene. It doesn't know which one you want to use. So let's say that in this case, the artist thought that they were okay, and they merged their changes into the master. And you'll see what happened here, and you can drag this out. Sometimes it'll collapse. See, what happened here is art and sound start at the same point, but the art merged in. So here's the thing. At this point, if our sound design merges into master, and it says merge conflicts detected. To proceed with merge, you must stash any changes and check out branch master. That just means that we need to be inside of the master in order to merge this in, because we're making changes to the master. So I'm going to double click there, and I'm going to attempt my merge in, merge. So you see, in this case, the scene file didn't really merge that well. Sometimes it'll be fine, sometimes it won't. It's best practice to not actually work from the same files as other people. In this case, I probably should have worked in the prefabs that are linked in the scenes, but both people were not doing what they should have, and they both worked directly in the scene file. In this case, we need to decide what to do with this. And now we're going to look at a few ways in which you can handle this merge conflict. Now, one thing you could do is you've found out, there's a merge, and that means that I'm trying to make changes to a file that someone else has changed. So in this case, let's say that I decided, something's wrong. I don't really want to proceed. I need to communicate with this person. Then you could just say abort the merge, and you could hop out of that and say, okay, let me find the artist and figure out, like, why are we both in the same file? Sometimes, mistakes will be made, and you can either go towards their file or cancel your changes or whatever. So communication is first. So now after we've communicated, we've decided, okay, we both kind of messed up here, but I didn't really spend that long inside of my changes. So what I could do is I could come to the master. I could merge my sound design pass in. I could just delete it if I wanted, this commit. But let's say I just merge the sound design pass in. We have our conflict. And one way to resolve this is if you click on the file, it'll bring up this new window here. And if you expand this, if you accidentally click, you can always just close it out. But if you click on the file, we need to resolve this file before we can continue, because our version control tracking doesn't know which one we want to use. There are two changes on the same file from the same commit. It's kind of confused. So we'll click here. You'll notice that you get a lot more control. Like you can go line by line if you use a non-free version of GitKraken. Some of you may want to do that, but I wanted to make this as accessible as possible. So you can just close this window. And in this case, maybe we had other things that we were committing with the scene file, like audio clips and all that. We still want to commit those, but we have recognized, okay, maybe we shouldn't have touched the scene file. If you want to say, just don't worry about the file that's being conflicted here, just keep the one that's already on the master, then I'm just going to say, use their changes and ignore mine. So you would check this check mark right here. That's saying, use the version that's already there and resolve the conflict by just forfeiting any changes that I've done in the master. So that's one way to do it. So I'm going to say, keep those, hit save. If there were any other files, we could also, we could merge those with the now resolved scene file. And so at this point, if I commit and merge, so now we have resolved our merges, and we're still not current to the remote. So now that we've resolved that, I'm going to attempt to push my changes, and we are all good to go, because there could be other potential changes happening in master as well. And maybe you have more than 2 developers and so forth. So that's one thing that you could do. Let's say that we have 2 coders. So I'm going to make a branch here and call this music system. I'm going to make another branch. Call this object spawning, whatever it is. So inside of music system, we're going to open this up. Open up Unity. So I hope this was really driving the point home that you should be updating, you should be going to master and pulling often to make sure that you're working with the most recent version before you begin your changes, and then make your changes and then try to merge them back in. And you should also be making sure that when you can, you're working in separate files so that you don't come across these merge conflicts. Because the merge conflicts happen when 2 people are working from the same file and it doesn't know which file to use. So in this case, this is our music system. And let's say that we had a script here. And let's do this inside of Kraken tests. And let's say this is some sort of level controller or whatever. And both of our programmers are going to accidentally have touched the same script. We'll say public void play music. We'll add some start music playing here. Save. I'm not really doing anything substantial here. I'm just saving my script. Okay, wait for it to compile and close. And so you'll see this change. So we're going to say, okay, yes, we implemented our music system. We'll leave a commit. We'll say added play functionality. You could even have multiple if you wanted, but I'm just trying to save time. And now at the same time that was happening, remember we started a branch here with our object spawning. So I'm going to double click to swap over to there. And inside of the same script, you'll see, because we had branched earlier, we're not seeing the changes from the music. So that is by design. And so now let's say we're the object spawning and we say spawn object, game object, spawn. Okay. All right, we need void. Okay, we'll say debug .log spawn object. So close that out. Close that out. Now, again, at some point in time, we were working from the same commit and trying to change the same files. So our version control system doesn't really know which one to use. And let's say that we try to merge our stuff back in. So we'll start with the one that we have already. We'll say, all right, let's make our commit for object spawning. We'll say objects now spawnable. Commit. Okay, so we have our two different commits from our music system and our object spawning. But now when we try to merge them back in, let's start with object spawning. Because I'm making changes to the master, I'm just going to double click to swap over to there. And I'm going to drag my object spawning in. I'm going to say merge that other branch into what I have here. And I can see all the changes here. I could click here and I could see what was added and what was taken out. Because remember, we took out start and update. Okay, and then, so we're all good. And let's even just push to master just for good measure. Let's say we pushed right after, cool. And now our music system comes along and says, okay, well, I want to merge in as well. So they're going to, maybe the first thing that they should do is they should make sure that they're current with master. So they go to master and they pull, okay? And now I'm going to merge my music system in. And you'll see that there's a conflict. Okay, so again, if we wanted to, we could abort the merge, we could talk to the person. We can see the script that was changed here with the warning sign, along with other stuff that maybe is fine and is not conflicted. And we talk to them, we say, no, I added a lot of code there. I need to keep it. And we can look at this and see the differences. Again, Pro makes all of this much, much easier. Like, oh, okay, well, it's adding it on the same lines. It's going to be hard. And so let's say if I didn't want to just forfeit my changes and I wanted to attempt to merge them together, if you were to have GitKraken Pro, you could just do this directly in line. You could click on here and you could try to fit these all together and make something that looks good under here. So we could try to click both and see how it merges. And you'll see how technically it merges, but you can look at this and see that the code it would not make sense. Like it's just kind of nonsense. So now we're stuck. Without GitKraken Pro, we need to do that. So let's look at how you could do it still within your editor. Just a really, really simple, dirty way to do it. We're going to close out of here. We know that this file is having problems. It's marked as a merge conflict. So we're going to go in here, we're going to fix the file, and we're going to mark it as resolved. And one way to do that is literally just to open the file. So we're going to go to show in folder, just right click, show in folder. So it'll open up, and we see our script here. We can open it up. And you'll see that it leaves these markers to show where the changes were in our changes. And we can see here that this is pretty close to making sense. We're kind of missing our bracket here, but maybe we can fix this ourselves. And maybe we can just merge the two functions together into the same script and we'll be fine. And again, we can use these as our guide to figure out where to look. But right here, let's look here and we'll say, okay, what happens? We'll close that bracket. Okay, we're cool. Make sure that we remove this because it's not going to compile. And this is the start of our music system changes. Save that. Okay, looks like we're error-free. And this is a little riskier than doing it the other way. But let's say this is one way to merge it. And we don't have any compile errors. We haven't added anything. We've just kind of shifted things around a little bit. And we can now save it. And now that I've merged this together and I look over it again and I'd say, yep, that's good. I'm going to save it and I'm going to close out. And if we check back in GitKraken, at this point, we know we've solved it. So I'm just going to mark this as resolved. We say we fix this ourselves. We're okay with the changes that we just made inside of our script. And I'm going to commit and merge this. So this is kind of the manual way to do it, just completely inside of my editor. Because I made this merge, I'm one step ahead. So the last step is to make sure you push to master. And you also see that I have these branches floating around. If I wanted to keep adding to the object spawning, I could, But whenever I'm done with a feature, it is good practice to just get rid of the branch. You can see how it's kind of like clogging up my, my list of branches here. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to make sure I'm in master. I'm going to delete object spawning. Okay, delete. We also don't need the music system. Let's say we finish that. Also finish sound design. Sound design's never finished really. Same with art. Okay, so we're clean, we're up to date, and we looked at a few different ways to solve merge conflict problems. Now, merge conflicts can get extremely complicated, like much more complicated than what we looked at here. But I did want to give you a few little tips and tricks to get past the first few that you're going to come across. Remember, the first thing you can do is just always abort the merge and just go figure out why two people are working in the same file. The second thing that you can do is you can choose to keep one version or the other if you're okay with one of the two people losing work. Maybe someone accidentally committed a file and you didn't want to keep those changes anyways. Like you can, they should not be staging that file if they see that they've made changes to it. Make sure that you're looking at the files that you've modified and make sure you unstage that file if you didn't mean to change it. And the last one is we just fix the merge ourselves if we wanted to try to merge it. Again, it is easier to fix these if you have GitKraken Pro, where you can just go and you could, instead of opening up my own IDE, I can do it all here where I can see the green, like I can see the differences between the two. We would call that diffing, where you can find the differences. Yeah, it's complicated. Merge conflicts suck and they're a pain to fix, but you will come across them and we don't want them to be too scary. We just want a few just basic tools to deal with them for now.